Hey, folks, welcome to the Accessible Hunter podcast. I'm Greg Trainer along with my co host, Mike Hudson. And today we're joined by a really special guest, Mr. Alan Bublitz. And Alan has perseverance outdoors. I knew I was going to butcher that. But first, what's going on in South Carolina, Mike?
Hey man, we're doing good down here, dude. Great weather today. It seems like we've had a good productive week. Just excited to be able to share a little bit more about our community. Had a great week being able to talk about some advocacy yesterday, have some town hall stuff. So that's always a positive. And then to be able to be on with you, see how things going in PA and to be able to share guys like Alan, man. I'm just excited to be a part of this process.
Man, I know you were doing some public speaking yesterday, and earlier in the week, you were getting your dock ready. For those that don't know, Mike's working on a wheelchair accessible dock. And how's that going for you, bud?
Man, he's down there today doing some blocking, and it looks like we'll have the gangway finished. We'll be able to finish up the rest of the T stuff this week. But with these weights of some of these chairs and track chairs, we're overbuilding this code. It goes to you look at the code and it calls for boards every 16 inches on square. We're doing them 12 inches on square and adding a lot more. Just bolting and just want to make sure we don't have any issues.
Absolutely, man. I know whenever you're done with it, we'll be able to drive a tank on it. So it's not going to be lightly built, or you're not going to cut any quarters on it.
Uh,
I, Alan, how are you doing today?
Good. Good.
Well, we want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast with us. And do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell people about yourself, maybe where you're from, your disability, that kind of thing.
Yes. Thank you guys for having me. My name's Alan Bublitz. I'm 21 years old. I I am the owner of Perseverance Outdoors. I love to hunt, fish, recreational target, shoot, ride ATVs, and just about any other outdoor activity under the sun. And on top of my passions for the outdoors, I have a physical limitation called cerebral palsy, and I am in a wheelchair.
Alan, thanks so much for coming on. I've been watching your YouTube videos, and you are out there getting after it, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk with Mike and I.
Thank you guys.
Alan, it seems like you love just about everything me and Greg do. It's one of those things. We're just blessed to be able to share more people in the community that are not letting anything in life slow them down. I love seeing everything that you get into. Um, of the outdoor activities, man, I know this is a quirky question, but if you had to pick only one activity today, hunt, fish, or ATV, which one are you doing today?
Man, that's a hard one. Well, it's currently raining where I'm at today, so I would say when it's raining, I fishing.
There you go. There you
Fishing's
go.
really good when it's cloudy and rainy.
You guys are two fishermen. I know Michael enjoys wetting the line and getting out there. I used to fish whenever I was a little bit younger, but kind of got away from it a little bit. But with Mike building that dock and seeing all of his pictures, I might get motivated to get out and do some fishing. Alan, what's your favorite fishing species to go after?
That's a that's a tough one. I I really love walleye and I love lake trout.
Yeah, that's that finesse fishing, man. You got to get after it with some of those guys. I'm with you. I love bass. I love saltwater fishing. But fishing is one of those things I just enjoy because when you got a line in the water, there's no telling what's about to happen.
Exactly.
Alan, how did you get involved with starting Perseverance Outdoors? Did you go on like a lot of hunts? In your area, did you have people inspiring you to do this, or how did you come about starting Perseverance Outdoors?
Well, I just loved doing outdoor activities, hunting, fishing, riding ATVs. you name it, and everywhere I would go, you know, people would just be amazed that, you know, I am on a wheelchair and I have physical limitation, but I'm still able to do all this stuff. And you know, on the flip side of that, I would hear other people with limitations say, I really want to hunt, I really want to fish, I really want to do all this stuff in the outdoors, but I can't because my physical limitation. And the biggest thing for perseverance outdoors is um eliminating the excuse I can't,
Yeah.
because you can. For us, it might look a little different. It might be unconventional, but you know, the outdoors is accessible for you.
Right.
The, the biggest thing with perseverance outdoors is just letting people know there's stuff out there that's accessible for you.
Right. You know, Alan, that you hit the nail on the head, man. You said a mouthful. A lot of what me and Greg talk about is just trying to get people out of their head and their home for a minute. You know, like you said, it's not conventional. Trying to get a wheelchair out there amongst animals, just get a wheelchair outdoors is not an easy task, but it's doable if you just think outside the box. So,
Absolutely.
when you're hunting, Alan, is there anything in particular, any kind of particular way you try to trek out to be able to get outdoors? Is there modalities that you use, track chairs, any of that kind of stuff, anything that helps?
A couple years ago, I was able to acquire a track chair, an action track chair, which, you know, it really has changed the game when they brought track chairs into the deal. Because you know, when I was younger, my dad could, you know, lift me and set me in the blind and stuff.
Yeah,
But as I got older and bigger, you know, having that track chair is really uh, it has changed the game because it has increased my self independence. You know, I can go here, go there, socialize with friends, socialize with
Yeah.
family. I can help around the yard. I can, and the biggest thing with those is they're quiet.
yeah,
You know, Alan, accessibility has come such a long way in the past 15 years. When Action Track first came out, that was such a game changer for Mike and me and everybody else that, you know, uses a wheelchair for mobility. And over the past 15 years, I think they've just gotten better. Some other companies have come along. You know, competition breeds better success on every level. And we're really fortunate to be able to have track chairs and different, you know, wheelchairs that are built for the outdoors. 15 years ago, that was kind of like uh, unheard of to get people into something like that. So we're all fortunate enough to have those. I wanted to talk to you a minute just about your motto for Perseverance Outdoors. And you say dreams converted to forward momentum. And you were talking about, you know, action track chair. And I think forward momentum, you know, moving forward with the chair. How did you come up with that motto?
You, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, I just love the outdoors so much. I breathe it 365 days a year. And, you know, there's a lot of people that out there that I'm sure that just they watch videos of people doing stuff and they're like, I want to do that. But again, they don't know where to get started. They don't know how. And, you know, I'm here to convert your dream to a reality, make it a reality. And, you know, I was asked by somebody a few weeks ago, what does explain to me what does dreams converted to forward momentum means? It it means to me that, you know, you with having a limitation period, whether it's physical, mental, so on and so forth. There's going to be days where it's going to be tough. You're going to want to throw in the towel because you just have those days. But for me, having your end goal, whether it's harvesting your first deer, catching a fish, just getting out on a boat, period, whatever it might be for that specific individual, have it defined, and that way when you focus on your end result and it be a positive end result, you're less likely to focus on be fixated on the
negatives. Yeah.
On the negatives in your challenges, and you can keep saying, I got this,
Yeah. One of the biggest things, man, that you just said, Alan, is making a daily choice. We could focus on the negatives, but we have to get up. I have a physical disability, me and Greg, both quadriplegics. And we can stay into the negative side of it if you wanted to. But being out in nature, seeing something new, something reborn every day, accepting the challenge of being able to get outdoors, to me is just another opportunity to say that life might be challenging, but I have a unique opportunity to be able to push past that. And I get up every day with a challenge, almost a chip on my shoulder, just to say, I want to make today as good as I can, not just for me, but for somebody else. So for everything you're doing, man, I truly appreciate and applaud just the fact that you're going to keep persevering.
And,
yes.
And Alan, you bring up a really good point. When I read Your Dreams Converted to Forward Momentum, I always think, a dream without a plan is just a wish.
Yes.
We hear that quite often. So you're encouraging people to make a plan, to have a goal in mind. You mentioned whether it's catch a fish or get out on a boat or harvest their first deer. Have that concrete plan of something you want to accomplish, not just dream about it, but push forward to make that happen.
And if I may take a second, where I'm at today as far as my career, it wouldn't be possible without my support system, my family,
Yes. Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to get out without them. So
yeah.
That's
one of the biggest things too, is just having that support system. A lot of times it's friends, family, the people we lean on. But you never know who's going to come into that wheelhouse once you put those needs out there, once you show that you're willing to continue to live life and you inspire others. People want to help people. They just need to know what the needs are. And a lot of times, just speaking for myself, I see a lot of people that really want to facilitate needs, they just don't know what those needs are until we put it out there in the wind.
Absolutely. And just having people look at the more positive side of life is just, that's what Perseverance Outdoors is. And, yes, Perseverance Outdoors focuses on outdoors. It's in the name, obviously. But, if I if somebody watches my videos that's not a hunter and or not an outdoorsman, maybe they can take some of the things I talk about and apply it to their own passion.
Yeah.
That's exactly right, Alan. Perseverance, it takes us so much to get through school. It takes us so much to seek employment, to volunteer. If we give up the first time something fails, we'd never accomplish anything. So just the word perseverance, it means so much to so many different people. And I just want to circle back about, you relying on family and friends to get out. Mike and I do that so much. There's nothing that we could do from getting up in the morning, brushing our teeth, to getting a shower, to getting dressed alone. I rely on my wife so much for, personal care, to getting me out and then friends and family getting me out hunting. Were you a hunter from a very young age? You said, when you were younger, your dad would be able to transport you to the blind and stuff. How old were you when you started hunting and fishing?
I was the first time I went on a hunt was probably when I was 12, 13. I I went on a hunt in 2015, and I wasn't able to go until 2017 till I moved to Missouri is when I really started to pursue it really hot and heavy, and my dad, mom, and I have been going at it ever since.
I know being out in Missouri, man, you guys got a lot of big game. Um, if you're going out and you're trekking along, man, what's your go-to animal? What are you looking for on your wish list that you just want it bigger and better next time?
Deer is what we mainly go after, and you're right. We do have some big deer in Missouri, and it's just it's it's neat. I will say that I am not much of a horn hunter. I'm more
Yeah,
of venison.
yeah.
Mike and I are both smiling because you're probably on the same page with us, Alan. If we get an opportunity at a nice mature deer, sometimes we don't always trophy hunt. Sometimes we're looking to, fill our tag and put something in the freezer, especially if we get a really good, clean, ethical shot. I know that I've had just as much excitement taking some does as probably somebody taking a 150 class buck just because I had a really good shot at it, a really good opportunity. Now, do you mostly rifle hunt? Do you use a crossbow, or what type of equipment do you use, and what do you go after them with?
I have a crossbow and I have rifles. Um, the past the past couple of years, I've only been able to get out during rifle seasons, but my goal for next year and or this upcoming year and going forward, I'd love to get back into bow hunting more
Mhm.
because I just love archery hunting because it gets you up close and personal.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. Me and Greg both shoot crossbows. I used to love the bow hunt before my injury. Of course, I can't do the same draw weight and all that with a compound bow. So crossbows are my go-to. But man, you're right. You got to get up and close and personal. I always love my 308 because I can reach out and touch them at a long distance. But you brought up a good point too. I want to chase a mature buck. Don't get me wrong, but I can't eat the antlers. So if I can find some good venison, dude, I'm good to go.
Yeah, my dad and I always joke about, unless you can find a way to cook the antlers, I take a machado. Now, saying that if a big buck walked out in front of me and I could get a clean ethical
Of
shot,
course.
I'm not gonna pass it up either. So
Yeah.
That that's right, buddy. That's right. Do you use any like adapted triggers from Be Adaptive, or how do you go about holding your rifle and pulling the trigger?
I am very fortunate with the I have I have limited mobility in my right side. My fine motor skills are affected, but I can use use my left hand to pull the trigger just fine. And but I will tell you that muzzle brakes and suppressors are the biggest difference for me because I can only shoot with one hand and I shoot with my non-dominant eye.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And
For
just having those those tools, and not having to worry about the recoil is just the is I believe every every recreational target shooter, hunter needs to experience shooting with muzzle brake, because I think they would get more interested and they'd find it a lot more enjoyable. And same with the silencer, the suppressors.
Yeah. You know, technology has come a long way. Before my injury, and even now, sometimes I like a little recoil every now and then if I'm just, getting out, showing out. You got to be a little manly every once in a while. The whole Marine Corps guy in me, and I was a heavy machine gunner, and so I love getting down on the trigger. But the older I'm getting, the more I just don't like to get thumped around. And so if I'm shooting for accuracy, you're right, man. A muzzle brake, a good crisp trigger, all those things where we can dial them in and make it better. All it's going to do is make us better shooters. None of us want to make an unethical shot or a bad shot on an animal. And you brought a whole new demographic to it when you're looking at precision shooting. And you're right. I think more people would get excited about it if they didn't have to worry about that recoil management.
And
Yes.
for people that have not shot, a muzzle brake or a suppressor, I really didn't believe it would make that much of a difference on recoil, but I was pleasantly surprised. And the only thing I can say is if you're using a muzzle brake, don't have anybody standing off to the side. That's where that report's going to go the loudest. So the technology's out there, but man, don't get to the side of a muzzle brake.
Oh yeah. It definitely, when that gun goes off, that muzzle brake, it definitely gives you a shock. That's for sure.
We always joke around. We bring some people out and we'll shoot like big guns, 50 BMGs or something like that. It's always fun in games when you're behind the trigger of it, but if you're to the right or left of it, you're just hoping they hurry up and run out of ammo.
That's a fact. Now, Alan, I know that you do a lot on YouTube, and you're always posting videos and things. How do you decide what you're going to put up on YouTube, and like what's your favorite content that you post?
You know, I don't necessarily have a favorite content that I post, because I love all of it. As far as what I decide that goes up on YouTube or any of my social media is, you know, I really see where my audience gravitates towards. If they like this more, then I'll go in that direction. If they like that more, if they it's basically what my audience.
Can you tell us about maybe one of your favorite hunts that you've been on, and how that turned out for you?
One of my favorite hunts is actually one where I wasn't behind a trigger.
Yeah.
Behind the trigger. I had a gun with me, but this past deer season, I had the pleasure of hunting with my mom, which she's hunted all the time growing up. Both my mom and my dad came from a hunting family, but this was the first year she was actually behind a rifle, and she actually was able to take her first deer. And as somebody that hasn't harvested a lot of deer, you're always anxious to get that first one under your belt. But I can tell you, you have just as much fun or more fun seeing some the expression on somebody else's face when they finally do squeeze that trigger, and it is successful. And man, the look on my mom's face and the memories that we shared are just priceless.
Man, you said it, dude. It's about making memories. I'm like you, dude. I love to watch somebody's face, especially if we get somebody over here that maybe hasn't done an event in a long time, or they saw something that because of the accident or injury or whatever, thought was lost to them, and then you show them that it is accessible, that it is possible again, and just see that light come back on, that excitement in their eyes. You're right. I love to be able to get on the trigger and harvest an animal, but I would much rather see it through somebody else's eyes. it lights up something in my soul, man, where I just want to give more.
Alan, I got to tell you, buddy, you are mature beyond your years because it
Hundred
it
percent.
took it took me a long time to kind of experience that I was always the shooter. I was the guy that, man, growing up, I wanted to shoot the deer. Whenever I was first injured, I wanted to shoot the deer. And now, I get so much pleasure out of hearing other people's stories about going out with other people, seeing them, take an animal for the first time, see them laid up. But it took me a long time to realize that here you are at 21, putting that out there. And I just think it's great, Alan. I think you're mature beyond your years, and what you're doing is just fantastic.
Thank you. And yeah, that was really an experience. And just being able to get out there too in the outdoors. I said this. I've been saying this in a lot of videos. When you do get outdoors, it is not all about the harvest. It's sure that's what when we get up every morning, go out when it's pitch black out, we're hoping, man, I hope I get a shot today. But just seeing the sunrise and when it's starting to peek up over the trees, and then in the evening when it starts to get towards last light, how it just goes from bright to dark.
Man, the sharing these journeys, if I could get somebody outside that say has never hunted, that doesn't really understand the hunting community or whatever, if we can just get them out to share the adventure, to see that sunrise, to hear those animals when it's pitch black, there's dead silence, and then all of a sudden when the sun starts peaking and you hear the animals move, it's about the complete adventure. It's about all your senses coming to life. And especially for myself, with somebody with a disability, man, just to be able to get out there and be a part of it, it is overwhelming sometimes just to be able to see that adventure come to fruition.
And exactly, and as hard as it is for people with physical limitations or limitations period to get outdoors, you know, it also it's also uh, harder for the um able-bodied outdoor enthusiasts who are helping you, because it's not easy for them too. And
Yeah.
as I've gotten older, I've watched my dad, mom, friends. It really has opened my eyes and allowed me to see it from a different perspective.
Alan, our community is really small. It's really tight knit. I'm speaking about, people with disabilities that go hunting, that go fishing. You're talking about a small percentage of the population in the country. So we're all, pretty close knit whenever you get on social media and you see people and we start following each other and hearing everybody's stories. What kind of response are you getting from people telling their stories and maybe how they're interacting with your videos? What are you hearing back from social media about some of the things you're doing?
Man, I've gotten a really positive response. I've got people messaging me, and uh, especially people over social media that have watched my videos for the first time, especially parents that have a child with a limitation, and hearing them express their concerns and saying, your video addressed some of our concerns, and we can't wait to get out there. And that's what I want. I want people to reach out to me and um hear their stories, and you know especially once I get farther into this deal, um getting to see their success when they finally do accomplish that goal. Yeah.
Right. being able to share and advocate, man, to be able to show people how you do it, that doesn't mean that the way we do things is always going to be the way others pick up on it, but it brings up the idea and it gives them a catalyst where they can see, hey, this worked for Alan or this worked for Greg. Maybe if I tweak it a little bit, because it comes down to a personal setting. You know, the way I set my deer rifle is going to be a little bit different than the way you guys set them, but it gives somebody an opportunity, an idea that they can bounce off of us to say, hey, what worked better for you when you first started?
And there's always going to be some concerns. People are always going to have questions about our ability, our safety. I had one lady, I was giving a talk one time, and she said, "Was it safe for you to go deer hunting?" And I said, "Well, ma'am, it's safe for me, but it's not safe for the deer." And that kind of cracked everybody up, that we use a little bit of humor sometimes. But we are just as safe as anyone else. I mean, you go through hunter safety classes. Mike and I spend a lot of time at the range. We're always running scenarios of what if, and we want to be as safe as possible. So I think it's a legitimate concern that people want to know, well, is it safe for my son or daughter to do this activity? And we always say yes, with the proper training, with the proper education. And that's what you're trying to do, is educate people, Alan.
Yes, I'm I'm a big advocate for, you know, especially the firearms, respectful and responsible firearm ownership, because one, when you do go hunting, once you decide that, okay, you pick out a deer, pick out a species that you want to take, once you squeeze that trigger, you cannot call that bullet back.
Exactly.
And I guess just having people realize, um, that at the end of the day, hunting is necessary, but you are still taking a life, and that should not be taken lightly.
Man, you said it right there, buddy. It's all about safety. It's all about knowing what is your target audience and what's beyond it. I was in law enforcement, again, military background. Once that trigger is pulled, you can't unpull it. The biggest thing we have to take is responsibility. And you're right, you're taking a life. Don't take that lightly. Make sure that you understand everything that goes into it. But at the same time, being able to get out and ethically harvest some of these animals, it's an opportunity to have better herd management, and you know where that food's coming from.
Yes.
Alan, you probably get asked this maybe quite a bit, but how do you stay, mentally sharp and positive in your daily life? Maybe not just related to hunting, but when you were, going through school, you're 21, you haven't been out of school that long. How was it for you, going through school with CP, and how did you kind of strive forward?
You know, I'm I'm really fortunate to have a base that I have, having the parents that I have, because they've raised me to always look at the more positive side of things. And you know um with the physical limitations, it's always easier to look at the negative. But as I think Mike said earlier, if we keep looking at the negatives, we're not going to go anywhere. So, so it really comes down to the choice. Do you really want to look at the negatives, or do you want to just put those in the review, focus on the positives, and move forward? And, and I think it all depends on, the individual's personality and their attitude. I always try to be positive, so I think when I was around people, I think I tried to show that to them, and I really didn't have any problem with people being mean or negative or anything like that.
You know, man, that's what it's about. It's about changing perspectives, about changing hearts. It's not only about changing it for those with the physical disabilities, It's about showing people that are maybe around us that are able-bodied that really doesn't understand about our injury, our ailment, to be able to teach and show and guide. Um, and you're right, man. If we stay on the negative, then nothing positive comes about for ourselves or others around us. Um, what do you see going in your future, Alan? Where you I know you got a lot going on with the accessibility parts of what you're looking at, but where do you see yourself personally going in school, or where are you striving for today?
Um, I I would really love love to, you know, keep going on these trips. Um, and two, having the opportunity in the next 2 to 5 years to be able to go to these trade shows and possibly meet some of my followers and get to hear their experience. I may have already heard it, but I would love to hear outside of a computer screen. So, as a outdoor activities promoter, you do have to stay on the computer, but venturing away from the computer and getting more out in the public eye.
Alan, it's something special whenever we get to do some public speaking and actually interact with people. Um, it's it's great that we can do podcasts and do online things, but I know Mike gets a lot of pleasure out of interacting with people personally and talking at church groups and colleges, universities, and I've always gotten such a kick out of that to interact with people one on one. Have you ever considered doing any public speaking or mentoring locally?
Um, as far as public speaking, I've thought about it a little bit. Um, mentoring, I would love to mentor. I also look at Perseverance Outdoors as as I was looking back, if I was up and walking around, I would probably be out west guiding hunts, guiding fishing trips. But obviously, I can't. Speaking realistically, that's not physically possible for me. So Perseverance Outdoors is my guide service. I'm just going about it a different way.
Yes, sir.
Man, I'm gonna tell you what. Greg said it earlier. You are mature more than most 21-year-olds I know. Um, it's beyond humbling to be able to share this podcast and just to hear your heart, hear your passion for others, and that old soul, man, wanting to be out west. That's the call of just about every red-blooded American out there. They want to be out west, challenging themselves to be able to get out there and be in nature. But man, you're speaking volumes to me, man, and you're getting me excited. I know people are going to be excited to hear this.
Thank you. I would always be a little bit nervous though going out west, because I might not come back.
Eh, that's part of life, man. It is what it is.
Alan, I got to tell you too. I had a person with cerebral palsy in my life early after my injury. He was a rehabilitation counselor. His name's Dave Harding, and that man, uh, he grew up, going to public school, went to college, went to work, became a college professor. He changed so many lives, including mine, and I can see you being a mentor similar to Dave that makes changes, positive changes in people's lives. You may not even realize the power you have, speaking up and speaking out to get people outdoors. But I wouldn't be where I am today without Dave Harding, and
Yeah.
uh, he's just an always a thought in my mind that he never let anything stop him ever, and I don't think you will either, Alan.
Thank you. And another thing I just want to I guess let my viewers know through my platform is not outdoors. No matter if you have a physical, mental, um, if you're able-bodied, the outdoors has no age limit.
Right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Alan, if people want to get a hold of you, what is the best way? I want to plug your site. Can you give a little shout out to some of your social media channels?
I am on Facebook, which um I have to say I get a lot of responses on there, so I'm really heavy into Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. That's another good place people can reach me. And X, which that's still working itself out. And then I got YouTube.
And we will link to all of your accounts on the podcast. Um, Mike, do you have any other questions or anything that we should bring up, and then we'll go to Alan for the final word.
Yeah, Greg, you brought it up. I've got a really good friend that has cerebral palsy. Um, One of the things, man, that she always trips me out about is she's highly educated, highly motivated, and when we're together, she always Alan's mannerisms kind of respond and remind me of her in so many ways. She's hilarious when I'm around her because her wheels are always turning, and she'll say, "It takes me just a little bit longer to get it out." But if you'll just ride with me for a second, it'll all be worth it in the end. And it's always it's exciting to watch, but when you get around able-bodied people that don't know how to really take us, it is such an icebreaker, man, when she just unloads all this stuff they didn't expect out of her. And then they're like, wow, this chick ought to be like an industrial engineer. And I'm like, she is.
Yeah, she is exactly. Alan, I'm going to give you the final thoughts, buddy. What would you like to leave people with, and what's important to you today?
I guess just letting people know that the outdoors is accessible, and if you're sitting there watching this podcast right now that you may be thinking the outdoors is not, I'm here to tell you it is. There's one phrase I just can't stand here, which is I I can't, because you you can't. And you know if I have a second, just another thing I struggle with my physical limitation is a startle reflex. So if there's anybody out there that has a startle reflex, um, and likes to shoot, hunt, do all that kind of stuff, I will tell you: weighted blanket, heavy hunting boots, a rope, and a squeeze slash stress ball in your non-shooting hand really helps you, because before I had those, the squirrel would run past the blind and I would jump out of my skin.
Mm-hmm.
So having a heavy hunting blanket calms my muscles down and gives them feedback and just tells them, okay, you're going to be okay.
Alan, you brought up a really good point about an exaggerated startle response, and I'm guilty of having that myself. If I know a shot's going to go off, I'm fine with it. If I'm in a range and I'm expecting it's not really an issue for me. But a surprise shot, or if somebody drops keys behind me, or anything that I'm not really prepared for, I definitely have an extreme startle response. And I'm going to maybe try out that weighted blanket. That might be the idea, the ticket of the day. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. And we so appreciate everything you're doing for the outdoor community and taking the time to come on the podcast with us today. So thank you so much, Alan.
You're you're absolutely welcome, and thank you guys. This has been a pleasure, and um, thank you guys for being followers on my business. Your support and feedback really helps me out a lot, and I just love seeing other people enjoying the outdoors.
I'm like Greg, man. I wanted to take just a second to say thank you for all you're doing for the outdoor community. Keep pressing on, man. You're setting an awesome precedent for so many people to be able to see and do. The young folks, the old folks, we're all going to continue to follow you. I just encourage others to go check out Alan's sites to be able to see all he's getting into. Thank you again for taking extra time to come on and just be able to share a little bit about your story and to be so open and transparent about how you do what you do.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure.